Hey guys, welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to look at something pretty cool. It's a Unity event, and we're actually going to be focusing on what it allows us to do in the inspector and the way that allows us to find methods that are on an object that we assign to a field. So if you're familiar with the way that the buttons work with the on-click event, you can assign an object to it, and that will be adding a listener to that event. Then whenever you click on that button, it fires off all the listeners. And we're going to be looking at using that for anything we want in our game. It's really, really easy to do, and it actually works with just a couple lines of code. And a lot of people ask, how do you get that functionality? Because it looks like it's something that is used throughout Unity, and a lot of assets use the same thing, and that's because it's really easy to do. So we're going to be making this right here. We're actually not going to be making what this is. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a trigger element, and then we're going to take and use that trigger element to fire off an event for listeners. In this case, we have multiple bombs spread out through these boxes, these crates, this wood here. We got multiple bombs spread out, and all of them is going to invoke the listeners that I have assigned, every single bomb to one trigger. Just an example of how we can do it, make it kind of cool. So whenever I hit whatever the trigger button is, in this case it's enter, it's going to fire off every single bomb. So enter, boom, everything blows up. And it lagged my computer a bit there because this computer sucks for gaming, but that's fine. And it explodes everything. Every single bomb went off at once. There's like 4 or 5 bombs spread throughout here. And again, boom. And just a fun little way to look at how it's working. So now let's go into Unity and set this up. Actually, all we're going to be doing is writing the trigger, and then I'm going to show you how you can actually add objects to Unity events and invoke the listeners. All right, so in Unity, what I want to do, you see I have all these bombs here. All I want to do is trigger the bombs, every one of them to blow up whenever I fire off a single event. So if you think about how a button works, let's quickly create a button. And I have the on-click event down here. The list is empty. I can add an event to it, and then, or add a listener to it. And then I can drop my bomb on it. And then I can decide, based on that object, which component I'm going to interact with. So I'm going to interact with bomb. Then I have this explode method. And all these are the methods that are accessible to this event. And whichever method I select adds that as a listener to that. So whenever I click on the button, it's going to actually call explode, or it's going to send message, or whatever it may be. So I want to click explode, and now whenever I click this button, it's going to call the explode method on that bomb. I want this ability, I want to be able to add this to my components, to my objects, and be able to add objects to this, and then go through and choose what component I want to look at, and then decide what method I want to add as a listener. And that's very powerful. You can imagine how many things you could do with that simple ability. Now you could do this on your own, write your own, and it wouldn't be that bad with a bit of reflection knowledge, but using this, it's obviously already set up for you, and it makes it super, super easy. So what we're going to do now is I want to create just a C# script. I'll call it trigger. And all these assets you're seeing here, this is just one scene from a pack. It's free on the asset store. I just wanted something to put in here so we can have something to look at. I'll have a link in the description if you want to pick it up. There's a bunch of cool things in this one. And again, it's free, so check it out. Link in the description. So open up trigger. So now for trigger, what I'm going to do is I'm going to expose a field to the inspector. Now we could do this with a private serialized field. I'm just going to keep it simple and do a public. Now this is in the Unity Engine .event namespace. Sorry, events namespace. And it's called a Unity event. And I could also add this as a using statement. And I'm going to call this bombs to trigger. Just like that. Pretty simple. So now if I were to go back in, I want to save that and go back into Unity. And I'm going to create an empty object, and I'm going to call it trigger. Doesn't really matter. Add my trigger to that. And what we have is what we saw on the button. Bombs to trigger is what I called that field. The list is empty. I can add a listener. I can decide if it is turned off, if it is editor and runtime, or if it is just runtime. And then I can simply add an object to this, just like that, and then decide what method is added as a listener. Pretty cool. So what's cool about this is I can add multiple listeners, as you know, you can do that. And I can invoke them all at the exact same time. So to do that, it can be one or multiple. To do that, I'm going to first check for input. If input.getKeyDown is not relevant, but I want to have some way to activate it, key code, I'm going to look for return. And then all I have to do is take bombs to trigger, which is a capital B, should not be. And then I'm just going to call the invoke method on that. And that's all we have to do. Now, this does work just like the button would. So if I were to take bombs to trigger, I can actually do AddListener to it and add my own listener from code, just like that. And you can also remove the listener, just like you would for the buttons and so on. So now, if I go back into Unity, I've got bomb 4 added to this. I'm going to add my first bomb there, go down to bomb, and then select explode. And play. Now, the fourth bomb, or the first bomb, the explode method of that bomb is going to be added as a listener to my trigger. Now, whenever I hit the enter key, or the return key, it's going to fire off an event, and anything listening to it, in this case, that one bomb, is going to do whatever the listener says. In this case, it's going to explode. So I'm going to hit enter. Boom. That one bomb went off, it exploded, and everything did what you'd expect. And I can keep doing it because it just keeps listening, right? Just over and over and over. Now, I'm probably lagging the recording because my computer does not like things like that, but that's fine. So what I want to do is add all the bombs. So I can just do the plus sign there, and I can add another bomb. And I can keep doing this for as many things as I want. Now, it doesn't have to be a bomb. It doesn't have to be anything like that. I can add, say, this one event, when it fires off, is going to have a listener that is the bomb explosion. It's going to have multiple different things. I can even like take a light in here, and I could go to a light, and I could do anything with a light in here when this explosion happens. Pretty cool. So maybe if I were to go and set to set active, whenever I trigger this, it's going to turn my light off. Let's see what that does. Boom. It's turning off the one that doesn't even matter. Let's actually do it with our main directional light. Game object, set active, false. There we go. Back up, enter, boom. And notice that the light is now off. If I look at it, it's turned off. Enter, boom. And now there's no light shining on my scene because it toggled off and the explosions happened as well. And that's pretty much how the Unity event works in the case of adding events in the inspector. Now, like I said, you can also add them through code like you would for any of the other UI event systems that we've worked with in the past. So if I were to go in and on start for trigger, I could take bombs to trigger, do add listener, and you can just directly add the listener just like that with a log thing that I made down here. It's a public void with no arguments. And now whenever I do this, hit enter, notice that it logs to the console. That's going to be it for this lesson. I'm not even sure if this is a part of the Unity Tip series or if it's its own thing. I'm not really sure yet, but hope you guys enjoyed this. Just a cool little trick maybe you didn't know about. If you like this kind of stuff, feel free to leave me a comment and let me know what else you'd like to see in the future. Patreon.com/GameGrind to support the creation of more content on this channel. My name is Austin, and I will see you next time.